Welcome to another episode of the K&A Football Podcast. Today, Austin and I are going to be talking about our preseason award predictions for the season. We're going to be going through MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, all the awards for the season. We're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be covering a good part of the news, and we're going to be ending this episode with a new segment we like to Call It or Scrap It. We're really excited for this week's episode. Hope you enjoy. This is K&A Football. So, Austin, we are back on what feels like more of a schedule now. This is now the second week that we've been filming Season 3. Feels good to be back to the normal K&A schedule, getting ready to start up the season. And obviously, it's the end of the summer, close to football season, so that means you're going to be moving back to college here in a minute, next Tuesday. So what are you feeling here before you go back to college?
Well, I mean, for starters, I'm excited to go back to school. You know, I have a lot of friends there. I'm excited for the next year. I'm going to be learning lots of stuff that I'm interested in. Really excited. As you guys, the viewers who have been with us for a while, know, last year, me going to school is kind of what started the breakdown of us not being in so much of a schedule of recording. But I think that a big part of that, too, was the fact that Debbie was in Africa. So, hoping
that was a big part.
Hoping that everything will go a lot smoother. We're going to stick to this schedule of recording for you guys once a week. Like we said last week, we're going to try to get these episodes out for you on Wednesday night or Thursday morning, so that we hit that Monday-Thursday gap between football weeks. But I'm excited. I have a couple of ideas of how I want to set things up for while I'm at school for the studio portion. So hopefully that'll all work out and it won't just be a plain white cinder brick wall behind me. It'll actually be a little more interesting. I won't have much space to work with. Kadin's got that real cool setup where he's got those signed jerseys and the K back there. Oh, it's so fantastic, but I'm not going to have as much space as him. So I'm going to do what I can with the space that I have, but overall, I'm excited to get over there and stick with the routine, be able to keep bringing out content for you guys.
Yeah, you're giving me a little bit too much credit, though. I wish these jerseys were all signed. There's not a single one up here that's signed. So.
Oh, they're not. Never mind. I lied. They're not.
Give me a little too much credit
whatsoever.
There.
They're not. All right. You should send those into training camp. See if they'll be willing to sign those for you.
Yeah, let me go all the way down to Charlotte, North Carolina, and get some things signed.
Exactly. All right.
All right.
We'll jump straight into the episode here.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start you guys off with some news, and then we'll get into the entertaining stuff, Kadin and I's preseason award predictions. So, first on the block, more contract news for you guys. I know you all really love that. You love talking the numbers. I know I love talking the numbers. Tyreek Hill. He went ahead and agreed to a deal worth over $90 million over the next 3 years. This contract includes $65 million of guaranteed money. He was a fantastic receiver last year. In those last 2 years with the Dolphins, he has 119 passes caught, as well as 1,700 yards in each of his last 2 seasons with the Dolphins. So, as everyone knows, he's a fantastic receiver. Definitely worth the money. But the real question boils down to is he worth the money in relation to the rest of the team and what you can do for the future? So, Kadin, is it worth it? Obviously, Tyreek's worth the money, but as a team, is it worth the money?
I think it is worth the money, personally, because without Tyreek Hill, that team is not, I mean, they're obviously still a team, but without Tyreek Hill, they are not the Miami Dolphins. They are not going to the playoffs every season. They might be more of a mid-tier team. They might squeak into the playoffs here or there, but they won't be one of those teams that's contending at year in and year out. Tyreek Hill is one of, if not, you could argue, the best receiver in football. And without him, he has a incredible ability that nobody else in the NFL has. You can't teach speed, and he has speed like I don't think we have ever seen in NFL history. You can't guard him. You can game plan for him all you want, but he will burn you out the top. He is such a difference maker, and I think it's super important that the Dolphins paid him. But what's super interesting about this whole deal is they didn't give him any more years. Like, he was already under contract for the next 3 seasons or whatever he's still under contract for. They just gave him more money. They're like, Tyreek, you're so good. Like, we're going to just give you this amount of money because we're looking around the league and we're seeing Amon-Ra St. Brown get paid. We're seeing Justin Jefferson get paid. We're seeing DJ Moore get paid. We're going to make sure that we go and pay you so that a situation doesn't occur down the road, kind of like the Cowboys have, where now CeeDee Lamb is asking for so much money, and they're not coming to a deal, and now CeeDee Lamb's holding out. So I think it's very smart for the Dolphins to get this deal done.
I completely agree. I totally agree with your take there. All right. In other news, still regarding wide receivers, we talked about him a little bit last week. Brandon Ayuk, he remains untraded. As we talked about last week, like, he wanted out, he didn't want to practice. Oh, where will he go? Well, we got a couple of answers, but not really. There were really, at the beginning of this week, 3 teams that were still interested in trading for him. We had the Patriots, the Browns, and the Steelers that were all still interested. As of yesterday, 2 days ago, the Patriots went ahead and pulled out. They said, you know what, the 49ers are asking for too much. There were some reports that the Patriots were willing to offer Ayuk somewhere in the realm of $30 million a year as well, which is, definitely the money that he's asking for. It's what he thinks that he's worth. That's Tyreek Hill money right there. But inevitably they backed out because the 49ers apparently wanted too much. So now it's just the Browns and the Steelers that are left in the negotiation talks. Kadin, do you see this deal getting done? Do you see him going anywhere, or do you think the 49ers are asking for too much?
I absolutely think it's a done deal between those two teams, obviously, which oddly enough happens to be 2 of the biggest rivals in the NFL that are the 2 contending teams left for him. But I think it's a done deal. I said it last week that I think the writing was on the wall once they drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round, but I do not think he plays another game for the 49ers. I think there's been so much bridges burned. There's been so much trade talks. There's been a lot of trash talking, a lot of cryptic tweets, cryptic comments. I don't think there's a way that Brandon Ayuk stays on the 49ers. Now, it's going to be interesting to see which team he goes to, because obviously if he can manage to go to the Browns without having to give up Amari Cooper, that's a very dangerous wide receiver room with Amari Cooper, Brandon Ayuk, and then your third receiver being Jerry Jeudy. That's a very scary receiving core right there. But then if you go to Pittsburgh, on the other hand, they always manage to have a winning record. They have a great head coach in Mike Tomlin, and then pairing him with an up-and-coming receiver in George Pickens would also be very good for many years to come. So it's sounding right now like his preferred destination is Pittsburgh because he wants to be coached by Mike Tomlin. I don't know if they have some type of connection there already, but that's his preferred destination. But I mean, I'm sure wherever he's getting his bag, he would go.
Yeah, you had mentioned that the Browns may have to give up someone like Amari Cooper in order to get this deal done. I've heard that the Steelers may have to get rid of someone like George Pickens to get the deal done. Do you think that either the Browns or the Steelers are willing to do that? Is Brandon Ayuk that guy to where you'd be willing to trade away Amari Cooper or George Pickens, as well as some others, it's sounding like, in order to get Ayuk? Is he really that good?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think if you're looking from the Browns' perspective, Brandon Ayuk has much youth on Amari Cooper. You're having Brandon Ayuk for way more years down the road than you have Amari Cooper. And right now, even in his career, I think Brandon Ayuk is a better player than Amari Cooper. So, yes, he cost a lot more money, and you did just give Amari Cooper an extension. But I think down the road and for this season, I think it's worth the investment. And for the Steelers as well, a lot of people are very high on George Pickens. They think he's going to have a breakout season. I'm not as high on George Pickens as some others are, but I think Brandon Ayuk is once again a big leap over George Pickens. So
I can agree with you there. All right. In terms of a little bit more controversial news, shall we say. We all know that in the waning seasons of Stephon Diggs' tenure in
Ooh,
Buffalo,
nice
things were
word there.
getting
Waning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Things were getting a little bit chippy. Stephon is kind of like that OBJ kind of character, where it's like he wants the ball and he wants the ball all the time. If he doesn't have the ball, it's your fault and it's your problem. So, and he likes to let people know that. He likes to let you know that he's not getting the receptions that he wants. So, you know, in those last couple seasons, it was always like us as the fans and the media were reporting that Stephon Diggs is, you know, a locker room problem. He's really breaking down the chemistry of the team. It's really an issue. And the Bills kept on saying, like, no, Stephon is great. We love Stephon. We want to keep him forever. And then they went and traded him away because, you know, he probably was a little bit of a locker room problem. So, reporters asked Josh Allen yesterday if he missed Stephon Diggs. Do you miss having Diggs around? Obviously, Diggs is a fantastic receiver. He's had, on average, in his time with the Bills, which is the last 4 years, he's had 111 catches, 1,300 yards, and 9 touchdowns on average. So, really proficient receiver, really great. I asked Josh Allen, hey, do you miss the guy? Obviously, this is your first time not really throwing to him. And Josh said, I think Steph is a great player, and what he brought to this team was special. I don't know if I'd say I miss. He was a guy that was reliable, you could look to. He's going to have the juice each and every day. I'm sure he's bringing it there in Houston. So definitely you can't say I don't miss that, but I'm very happy with what we have going on here and how the guys have been working. So, like I said, proficient receiver. Very good. But it doesn't sound like Josh Allen really misses his personality. It sounds like he's really happy with what they have going on there. Allegedly happy, if not a little dig at Stephon being like, yeah, I miss you as a receiver, but not necessarily as a player in the locker room.
Mm-hmm. Definitely interesting, that little kind of backhanded compliment at Stephon, saying he's a great receiver, but then saying, but I'm very happy with what we have here. Which, of course, he's going to say that. Yeah, you're not going to be like, yeah, our receiving core is kind of going to struggle this season without him. But it is a little bit of a backhanded compliment. And Austin, did you hear what else? Did you hear what the Buffalo coaches said today about Stephon?
I didn't know.
They were asked in an interview. I think it was Sean McVay saying, what is your opinion on this year's wide receiver core? Because it's a very different core than they had last year. They obviously lost Stephon Diggs, and they also lost Gabe Davis. And so when he was asked about his new receiving core, his response was, it's a very unselfish group, which is kind of, I mean, you can take that as, yeah, it's an unselfish group. They all root for each other. But if anybody knows Stephon Diggs, he's kind of been that, like you said, that diva his whole career, that guy who wants the ball and that kind of selfish player. So it seems like a lot of backhanded shots being thrown at Stephon Diggs, so kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
And before we move on with the rest of the episode, let me remind you 2 things. 1, make sure you be following K&A Football on all platforms. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on anywhere that you get your podcasts, and we're on Instagram at KA_football and everywhere else at K_A Football. And also, this video is sponsored by K&F Construction. K&F Construction has been serving the Northeast Ohio community for over 16 years, specializing in composite decks. K&F Construction takes the time and effort to provide the service and product that you deserve for your home. You can call K&F Construction today at 330-575-2465 for a free estimate. Again, that's 330-575-2465. You can also visit kfdex.com, which is linked in the description. K&F Construction. Let us build your dream backyard.
Yeah. Great ad read, Caden.
Thank you.
And I really like how you said K_A, because a lot of people, when they're looking us up, they're like, hey, we want to see your podcast. Where's that? And I tell them, oh, it's K&A Football. They try to type the word and. Trips them up a little bit. K_A. Good call.
Ampersand is the little A symbol. I didn't know that until Austin told me that back when we started the pod. So, K and symbol A. There you go, guys.
There you go. All right. So, in other news, we're going to dabble a little bit into the college world because it affects what is going on in the NFL. So, The NCAA has placed Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh, formerly the Michigan head coach, on a 4-year show cause for violating recruiting legislation that the NCAA has and not cooperating with investigators. So obviously, we talked about this a little bit last year on the podcast here, where Jim Harbaugh, it seemed like he was on his way out of Michigan, not because he wasn't going to win anymore, he wasn't going to be a proficient coach, because he's been a great college coach for the last handful of years. But it seemed like he was on his way out because he could see the writing on the wall. He was in trouble with the NCAA. He had done some stuff with the recruiting. Obviously, at the end of last season, it came out that they had also done some stuff with sign stealing and other illegal forms of spying on other teams. So,
and just so happened to win a national championship.
Yeah, won a national championship. Coincidence. So then he got out of Michigan, goes to the Chargers.
Right. And now the Chargers are really talked about to be, this is a new upcoming team. Harbaugh's been an NFL head coach before with a lot of success at the 49ers. So the Chargers, they're going to be that new team. They're going to take a jump this season. Which one? Kind of related, kind of not. Justin Herbert got hurt at practice the other day with his patubia, something in his foot. He hurt his foot pretty bad. And I think that's a big blow for the Chargers because Justin Herbert's been injured many times before, and this is just another injury. And I think this is the type of injury that could lag all season. So, yeah. But back to Harbaugh, yeah.
Yeah, so Harbaugh, this is, you don't really think this is a big deal for him because it's like, sure, the NCAA, sure, they sanctioned him, they put this order on him, but what does it really matter? He's in the NFL now. Well, I tend to agree because if Harbaugh performs well in the NFL, not going to be an issue. He's going to be great. No worries whatsoever. The issue comes in is the NCAA is basically forcing him to stay in the NFL or not coach. Because if he were to not do well with the Chargers and he has to go somewhere else, he's going to have to stay out of college football. This order that they placed on him, basically what it does is if any college team hires him as a coach, as anything, through the 2028 season, so for the next 4 years, if any college team hires him for anything, they must suspend him for the first year that they have him, and then every year from then on out through the 2028 season, he is not allowed to participate in any team activities. He can't travel with the team. He can't coach the team. He can't watch film with the team. He can't do anything with the team. So the NCAA is basically suspending him from college athletics for the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't think is going to be too big of a deal. Like you said, I think he's going to have success in the NFL. So I think he will be in the NFL at least for the next 4 years. But I'd like to give a little bit shout out to Debbie for doing some behind the scenes research. Justin Herbert injured his plantar fascia. So I was pretty much there. Kind of said the same thing. They're saying 2 weeks in a boot for Herbert, so obviously no playing for him, and then a slow expectation to return to play gradually. And so they're hoping he'll be ready for the start of the season, but we'll see where that goes. But that's a big blow for the Chargers, who already lost a lot of their receivers. So,
yeah, obviously 2 weeks in a boot and then slow return to play is going to really cut it close to week 1. So
really,
we'll see how
and
that
Herbert's
goes
had his fair share of injuries before. And speaking of injuries, there's a very drastic one that happened today. Rondale Moore, the new wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, coming from Arizona. He was carted out of practice today with an apparent knee injury, and people were saying right away, like they called the Falcons practice. Like once this injury happened, he was taken to a hospital, and they called practice. Like it must have been one of those moments. Like it sucks the life out of you when you see. I mean, those teammates are your brothers, so when you see your brother go down, especially an injury of that severity, it's gonna mess with you. So they called practice for the day, and then news just came out late. Couple of hours ago that he's going to miss the entirety of the 2024 season, which is a kind of a big blow for a Falcons team that has a lot of expectations this year. Rondale Moore, obviously he's behind Drake London in the wide receiver depth chart, as well as obviously Kyle Pitts at tight end and then Bijan at running back. But he was probably going to be slotted in at the number 2 receiver. So, Austin, what do you make of this injury, and how do you think this affects the Falcons?
I mean, I think that it affects the Falcons in terms of their depth, mostly. I mean, he was, this week at least, he was practicing as the wide receiver 4. But obviously, as the wide receiver 4, maybe you're not, the flashiest guy, but he was putting up really, really good numbers for the Cardinals. So he was a really solid receiver, practicing at the 4 spot. He was obviously going to be getting in a couple of times a drive. I think this is a really big blow for them. Now you're struggling with depth. Does Kyle Pitts step up? I mean, he's been looked to as a great tight end that, the team really needs this guy, but he hasn't really produced.
Mm-hmm.
So really what I think is going to happen here is Kirk Cousins is going to have to spread the ball around a lot more. He's not going to be able to rely on those top 4, top 5 guys. You're going to you're seeing some of those guys that are in the 6 and 7 spot that normally wouldn't see the field. So they're going to have to really trust those guys, because if you go into the season thinking, okay, yeah, our guy, he's out now, he's not going to play, he was our number 4, we were going to rely on him, you can't be thinking that. You have to be thinking, all right, we have to move the next guy up. It's got to be the next guy up.
Yeah, and if we remember last season, he was arguably the number 1 receiver in Arizona, so he's a very capable receiver, and that's prayers to Rondale Moore for that injury, obviously. Hope he can come back next season very strong.
Yeah. All right, so that does it for the news for this week. Obviously, we excluded some things that we thought were a little more boring, you guys didn't want to hear about. We kept some of the more entertaining aspects of the news, and we'll try to do that for you guys as we keep moving forward. So, now one of the more interesting parts of the episode, and Kadin and I's favorite, at least it's one of my favorite episodes that we do a year, where we go ahead and we predict the NFL awards. I like this because it's like, oh, you could go with the safe option. I like to get a little risky with it, not too much. But, obviously our predictions for season awards end up on the internet forever, and so people get to see how wrong or how spot on we were until the end of time. So today, like Kadin said, we will be predicting MVP, Offensive Player and Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, as well as Comeback Player of the Year, even though no one knows what the criteria for that is. So, Kadin, do you want to go ahead and start us off with MVP?
Let's go for it. So if you've been listening to the podcast since we started this thing up 2-3 years ago, both of our preseason predictions, I have had the same MVP pick. And I am 0 for 2 on my MVP picks. If you've been paying attention, I have said Justin Herbert the past 2 seasons. I was very high on him going into the seasons, and I still am high on him this season. However, like I talked about, there's a lot of things not going his way this year, with one, his plantar fascia in his right foot. Obviously, that's a little concerning. And his very new lack of wide receivers, obviously losing Keenan Allen and Mike Williams in the offseason. And also bringing in a new coach in Harbaugh, who, one, doesn't really produce much in their quarterbacks. At least that's not what he did in Michigan. And who's very run the ball. And also just having a brand new system. So I think that's a lot going against Herbert for this season. So I'm going a different direction. I am very high on this team. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a team-by-team predictions video, kind of like we did last year, where we predict every team's record all the way up to the Super Bowl. I'm very high on this team, and I think that they're due for a bounce-back year. I'm picking my MVP to be Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles this year. Yeah. So, obviously, last season, he started off a little bit less than the season before, but the Eagles were winning games. And then towards the end of the season, defenses figured out their offense, and they just slumped. They ended up making the playoffs, but losing in the first round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was a very rough end of the season for the Eagles. I think that it's going to be a better season this year, obviously, if I'm picking him for MVP. Jason Kelce is gone. I think that means no tush-push. However, I do also think that helps Jalen Hurts. Because obviously being in the tush-push, being at the bottom of that pile, having dudes pushing you from the front and pushing you behind trying to get you in the end zone has a massive toll on his body. His previous 2 seasons, he's been dealing with very nagging leg injuries, shoulder injuries, chest injuries. He's been hurt and dinged up every game because I believe of this tush push. So I think no tush push really helps him just stay healthy, as well as they brought in a brand new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore. And Kellen Moore, you might remember, was the Cowboys offensive coordinator for a while, resulting in many successful offenses there with Dak and the Cowboys. And then last season, he was at the Chargers. I think he's a young, fresh mind who can get the best out of this team. Obviously, he still has A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who I think is one of the best 1-2 wide receiver duos in the league. But then I think the cherry on top, the main reason I think he can win MVP this season is the addition of Saquon Barkley. Obviously, Saquon was an absolute beast in New York, carried that offense for the last 6 seasons. And with the addition of Saquon, defenses have to pay attention to both the passing game and the rushing game. The last couple seasons, it's been Miles Sanders and then DeAndre Swift. Now you have a runner in Saquon Barkley who, if you thought he was good in New York with that offensive line, when he goes to Philly with this offensive line, I think Saquon is going to go to the moon this year with that offensive line. So defenses are really going to have to hone in to try to stop Saquon, and that just opens up so much for Jalen Hurts to throw the ball. So I got Jalen Hurts for my MVP pick.
You make a compelling case. I'm not going to lie to you. That's pretty good. I like the pick too. I think I wouldn't have picked him. I don't think I'd put him in my top 4 contenders for MVP this year. So I like that pick.
Nice.
For my pick, as everyone knows, MVP, quarterback-dominated award. Okay, everyone always goes quarterback. I'm not going that route. I'm not going quarterback. Okay.
Wow, that's kind of crazy.
Now, I am picking a player that obviously I believe, and everyone else probably believes, has one of the best chances of a non-quarterback to win MVP. He was in the conversation for MVP, but obviously non-quarterback, so you don't end up winning it. For my pick, I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey to win the NFL MVP this year. He rushed for nearly 1,500 yards last year, if you guys remember. He was on pace to score a touchdown like every single game. Like every game he was scoring at least one touchdown. He scored 14 touchdowns last year. He was a really big part of their receiving game as well, not just as a rusher, really great blocker, really great divergent player. I think that Christian McCaffrey, he's going to continue his streak of being an absolute dynamic piece in San Francisco with their offense, continue to provide support to their wide receiving core and being a safety check down for Brock Purdy. I think that Christian McCaffrey will win the NFL MVP this year. Going to bring it away from the quarterbacks a little bit.
I like that pick.
Ooh,
That's very new.
All right, Debbie did a little bit of research for us. It says Debbie's research shows that DraftKings Sportsbook has the betting odds for Christian McCaffrey to win MVP set at plus 4,000. So
it's a lot, but hey,
not the best.
But for a non-quarterback, I think he probably has the best odds to win it. I
agree.
I like that.
All right, now offensive player of the year, Kadin. Who do you have?
For offensive player of the year, we talked about this last year a little bit. I think last year we either both picked Garrett Wilson or we both picked Justin Jefferson. I don't remember which one we did, but it has been a wide receiver dominated award. It's kind of like MVP always goes to the best quarterback, and offensive player of the year always goes to the best wide receiver. I believe that this year it's going to be another wide receiver, and I believe it's going to be Tyreek Hill. I think he obviously just got that new bag. I think that offense runs through Tyreek Hill. Obviously, Jalen Waddle's a great number 2, but the defenses can put 3 guys on him, and he's going to burn them down the top. I think just Tua is very accurate. Tua can get the ball to him, and they just have such a connection. I really don't have much stats and all that things to prove why I believe this. Just Tyreek Hill, I think he's the second best receiver in football with Justin Jefferson being number 1. but Justin Jefferson is going into a season with a rookie quarterback, and I kind of have my doubts about J.J. McCarthy, especially for his rookie year, about giving Justin Jefferson numbers and letting him produce. So I think that Tyreek Hill will be able to get those numbers, as he's already shown he can with Tua. So I think Tyreek Hill will win it again.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there. For my part, I think you're right. Last year we both went Garrett Wilson to win Offensive Player of the Year, in large part because he won Offensive Rookie of the Year the year before.
I thought you were going to go somewhere with that. Never mind.
Well, for me, because I have a non-quarterback going MVP, I'm going to go quarterback to win Offensive Player of the Year, and I'm going to stick with the same trend. I'm going to go with last year's Offensive Rookie of the Year to win the Offensive Player of the Year. So I'm going to go for C.J. Stroud to win Offensive Player of the Year. He performed better than anyone could have expected last year as a rookie, especially in those last weeks. And on top of that, he lost some of his key pieces to injury in those last weeks of the season and into the playoffs. Those pieces are all going to be back. The Texans only got better. I don't think they lost any major pieces this offseason. They only got better. And so I think C.J. Stroud continues his streak. He went Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. Because I have non-quarterback going MVP, I'm going to go quarterback winning Offensive Player of the Year. C.J. Stroud, I'm going to win Offensive Player of the Year. All right.
Totally. And those two could easily be flipped as well. Like that wouldn't be the craziest
for sure.
thing in the world.
I completely agree. And Christian McCaffrey did win Offensive Player of the Year last year, so it probably could win it again. All right. Obviously, offensive side of the ball always goes MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, naturally offense. Let's switch to the other side. Kadin, who do you have for Defensive Player of the Year?
Defensive Player of the Year, I think every season since Aaron Donald's been gone, it's kind of been a rotation of three guys. Because Aaron Donald's not been gone for that many years. So I think it's kind of a rotation of three guys. I think it's T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, and Micah Parsons. Three edge rushers. Them three have, plus Aaron Donald, but they have dominated this award in the last couple of seasons. And this season, I think it's going to be another Micah Parsons year. I think it's a contract year for Micah Parsons. He's trying to get that bag. And as we know, the Cowboys clearly don't like spending money. They're not paying CeeDee Lamb. They're not paying Dak again. And he needs to prove himself, which, first of all, he's already proved himself. But prove himself even more and be like, all right, you're not going to pay me. I'm going to come out here and get 28 sacks. I know that's completely outrageous, but I'm going to go get an insane number of sacks this year. And then you literally have no choice but to give me all of the money I ask for, or else I will literally go anywhere because any team will give me any amount of money. And I think he's going to have he's already had an insane year, but when he won Defensive Player of the Year before. But his odds to win Defensive Player of the Year are at plus 330, which is not terrible odds at all. Obviously, he has the third best odds. Obviously, T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons. They're the top. They're the three. And he has the third best, and I think it'll be Micah Parsons.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously can't disagree with you too much, though. They have really dominated the award. Obviously, Myles Garrett won it last year. And as much as I would love to go Myles Garrett to win it again, I do think that I don't think he deserved it. I don't think he deserved the award last year, which is why I'm going to go with T.J. Watt to win it this year. I think, like you said, those have been the big three in the defensive category for the last couple of years. I think T.J. Watt's going to win it. He had 19 sacks last year, 48 tackles alone. He really is the Pittsburgh defense. You know, the Browns have a lot of players on their defense that make big plays. The defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, won Assistant Coach of the Year last year. Browns defense is fantastic. Steelers defense is also very good. It's solid. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Browns. T.J. Watt is an animal on his own. Like, if you have T.J. Watt out on the field, forget it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, when you see T.J. Watt on the sideline, you get excited because it means you can actually do something on offense. T.J. Watt is a game wrecker. It's right now, T.J. Watt is at plus 550 to win Defensive Player of the Year. which is a little bit behind what we had Micah Parsons at, though this list has Micah Parsons at plus 550 as well. So he's really good odds. He's one of the favorites to win it, like you said. I think he gets it done this year.
I like it.
All right, on to the rookies, the unproven. Who knows how they're going to pan out in the NFL? Caden, who do you have for our offensive rookie of the year?
For offensive rookie of the year this season, there's a lot of people that I think it could be. I'm pretty high on Caleb Williams. I think it could easily be him. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be very good as well with his ability to run. And obviously Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he is about as safe as a wide receiver floor as you can have. And that's who I'm actually going to pick. I think Marvin Harrison Jr., he has the ability to just either be a absolute superstar this season, or I think the worst, barring injury, the worst that Marvin Harrison Jr. can be this season is honestly a top 15 wide receiver. I think he's that great of a prospect coming out of college. I think he's one of the best wide receiver prospects that's came out of college in I can't even remember how long. Obviously the son of Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison Sr., the Marvin Harrison, the OG. He has plus 650 odds to win Offensive Player of the Year. I feel like he's miles better than any rookie receiver we've seen in forever. And in rookie receivers, it's a big jump from college to the NFL, but he's dominated so much in college. I don't think it's going to be too difficult to make that transition to the NFL. And Kyler Murray, his quarterback, very solid quarterback, very doable quarterback. He's supported many receivers in his career, like Marvin Harrison. He supported DeAndre Hopkins through an incredible season. DeAndre Hopkins is very similar in stature and playing ability to Marvin Harrison. And on top of all of that, Marvin Harrison is the only wide receiver with, he doesn't have any NFL experience, but he's the most, he's the number one receiver on that team by a mile, and he's a rookie, and he came in right away, and they're like, this is our alpha, this is our number one, our offense is running through this guy, and I think he's going to have an incredible career and incredible rookie season.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with you. I also have him winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. Like everything you said, he's fantastic. He was the 4th overall pick this year. I think, again, like you said, Kyler Murray, all he's got to do is get the ball to him, and realistically, who else are you getting the ball to from that team? He's one of the best wide receivers we've seen. I think he wins Offensive Rookie of the Year. Mm-hmm. Switching to the other side of the ball, again, we have Defensive Rookie of the Year. Caden, who do you have?
This one's a little more difficult because, at least in the first round of the NFL draft, it was really, really offensive dominated. The first defensive player wasn't picked until pick 15 by the Colts. And I think the Defensive Player of the Year is going to be Dallas Turner, the edge rusher out of Alabama. He went to the Vikings this year, and obviously playing edge rusher for Alabama, that success is always very high from there. Obviously, last season already, you got Will Anderson. You got, my mind just went so blank there. But you got Will Anderson. Dallas Turner was playing right behind Will Anderson. And Will Anderson has said before, Dallas Turner is another breed. And I can't believe he slipped all the way down to this far in the draft. So I think Dallas Turner, I said that. Can't believe he slipped part. Will Anderson did not say that. Don't quote me for that part. But Dallas Turner has the best odds to win Defensive Rookie of the Year as well. I did not even know that. Plus 400 odds for Dallas Turner. At least on paper, it's a lot slimmer of a defensive rookie class than in years prior. But obviously that doesn't mean much. So,
yeah. Like you said, not super heavy on defense out here, but I am going to go similar route to you. I'm going to go with an edge rusher out of UCLA, Laiatu Latu. He was drafted 12th overall to the Colts, as you sort of mentioned there. He has the second best odds with plus 500 to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was fantastic in his last 2 years at UCLA. He had 34 tackles for loss, 23.5 sacks. I think he should be good in the NFL. The real question is is he going to be the best defensive rookie? I honestly have no idea. I think it's hard to tell. It really depends mostly on the system that he's in and how he's been performing in training camp so far, and if he stays healthy. Defensive players are obviously notoriously bad at staying healthy because they're, especially edge rushers, really down in the trenches, getting hit a lot. So depends on a lot, but I have Latu winning Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I like it. And then for the last, I believe this is the last award, correct?
Yes.
Cool. Comeback Player of the Year. Obviously, last season, a little bit controversial. It was Joe Flacco when people were kind of yelling from the rooftop saying it should be DeMar Hamlin. He died on the field, even though he really only played 3 snaps. So I think it was very deservingly that Joe Flacco got it last season. So who do you got for Comeback Player of the Year?
For Comeback Player of the Year, in my mind, I say this is a no-brainer.
I would agree with that.
I anticipate that you'll have the same guy. I would be shocked if we didn't. For Comeback Player of the Year, I have Aaron Rodgers. Based on your reaction, I don't know if that's who you picked or not. We'll get to you. I have Aaron Rodgers. I think he obviously barely played at all last year. Played 1, maybe 2 snaps, and that was it. I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to have, at the very least, a solid year this year, and I think that for not playing at all last year, obviously, I think that it meets the criteria for Comeback Player of the Year. Again, no idea what the criteria is for Comeback Player of the Year. Aaron Rodgers does have the best odds to win it at plus 125. So that's why I'm winning it. Obviously, there are a lot of other guys on that list that suffered similar injuries to Aaron Rodgers that could win it as well, but that's who I have.
So I do not actually have Aaron Rodgers. I went a different route, but that obviously he has the best odds. I totally could see it happening. He had a devastating injury, and the storyline of that would be incredible because him going to the Jets, getting hurt 4 plays in, and then having a comeback season. So I actually am going with Anthony Richardson. I think that if he can stay healthy this year, he was on pace last year to have an incredible rookie season. Like I think he could have competed with C.J. Stroud for Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. His rushing ability is through the roof. He was passing the ball so much better than I thought he was. I doubted his passing so much coming out of college, and he proved me wrong very quickly. He has the 4th best odds to win Comeback Player of the Year at plus 600. I think if he can learn to stay healthy by sliding, I think that's the biggest part of it. Last year, he would just try to truck people, which in college, that was a little more fair because you're playing against college-sized people. These are the best of the best college guys, way more years in their careers. You're not playing against 21-year-olds. You're playing against 29-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 24-year-olds in the peak of their career, physical beasts. So I think, but I truly believe he was on pace for an incredible season last year. And I think his second-year leap, he just continues to rise and continue to do what we saw his rookie year. And I think Anthony Richardson can absolutely win Comeback Player of the Year. He's somebody that I'm targeting in all of my fantasy drafts because of his rushing ability and because of his,
That's really fair. All right, so those are our awards. You guys, our predictions for awards anyways. You guys can let us know what you think about all of that. You can comment on this video on YouTube, or we'll be posting some of this on Instagram as well. So you guys go ahead and let us know what you think about our picks. And then at the end of the year, we'll obviously see how right or how tragically wrong we were. All right, so like we said last week, we have come up with not a lot. We've come up with 4 different segments that we want to bring you guys every single week. We're on a rotation. So this week's segment is called Call It or Scrap It. In this segment, we are going to have Debbie make a statement to us, the hosts, and we are going to decide. It's going to be kind of like a play call. Debbie's going to make a statement. That's our play. And then we have to decide if we want to call the play, we like the statement, we agree with it, or if we want to scrap the play. We don't agree. We don't think it's going to work. So welcome to Call It or Scrap It.
Welcome, Debbie. First time in an appearance since being in Africa.
Hey guys.
How's it feel to be back on the pod?
Pretty good. Good to get it running again. Good to be back with the gang.
Let's hear it. Let's
All right.
hear the call it or
What do you got
scrap it
for us?
question.
All right. So the play call for this week, and I guess this month, is Aaron Rodgers will not return to his pre-injury form, and the Jets will struggle. Let's start with Austin.
All
What are
right.
your thoughts?
So,
What's the call?
So, my call is I'm going to scrap it, personally. Like I said, I have Aaron Rodgers winning comeback player of the year, so I can't very well have Aaron Rodgers struggling and the Jets struggling as well. So I'm going to go ahead and scrap that. The Jets, obviously, like we said, Aaron Rodgers did not play very many snaps last year, and the Jets still managed to go 7-10. They had a chance in those last couple of weeks to still squeeze into the playoffs. Obviously, they didn't. In addition to this, the Jets were starting guys like Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Brett Ripon, and other scrubs who are never going to see the NFL again. So going 7-10 with those guys as your quarterback, I think, is a feat in and of itself. They didn't lose that many pieces this year. The Jets actually went out and signed 5 new offensive linemen over this offseason, clearly knowing that they need a more solid offensive line in order to not get Aaron Rodgers killed in his first play back. So I think that the Jets are going to be just fine. I think Aaron Rodgers, he's returned from different injuries that people have said are going to hurt him as well. He's torn his MCL in his knee. He's broken his collarbone twice. I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be just fine. I think he knows better than anyone that he is old and that he needs to be taking care of himself physically as well as himself mentally. So I think anyone who got hurt over this last season, I think Aaron Rodgers is the most capable of coming back, and I think the Jets will be just fine.
Cool. Kadin, what are your thoughts?
I am going to actually call this one. I don't think he's going to be like a terrible quarterback, but I don't think he's going to look like the Aaron Rodgers that we know. Looking at the recent history of players who have torn their Achilles, players like Cam Akers, who was a very good running back before he tore his Achilles, he came back. Obviously, Cam Akers, he's now like a 4th or 5th stringer on the Texans. He played last week in the Hall of Fame game. That tells you the status of Cam Akers now. Tariq Cohen, I think we all remember the couple of years that he was a very, very good, speedy breakaway running back for the Chicago Bears. He tore his Achilles, never got to the same. He just retired a couple of weeks ago. Justice Hill, he was never that amazing, but tore his Achilles, now he's done. Marlon Mack, he had a couple of very good seasons. Tore his Achilles, never heard from him again. J.K. Dobbins, he's torn his Achilles. We know his career's never really gotten off to the right foot. Many players here, I could keep listing players, have torn their Achilles. I mean, there's some anomalies, of course, and Aaron Rodgers could ultimately be one of those anomalies, but I think it's very hard to come back from an Achilles. And then when you add on top of it that he's already 40 years old, there was a lot of hype going into last season. He was 39. But then for some reason, like I know that's absolutely ridiculous, but the age gap from 39 to 40, there's not many 49. Whew, he better not play till he's 49. There's not many 40-year-old QBs that can continue to dominate. Even Tom Brady, once he got up there, obviously he still played great in his 40s, but once he got to like 43, 44, when he was ready to retire, he started to show, all right, look, I got to call it quits. I'm getting too old for this. I think coming off an Achilles injury at that point of your career is going to be very devastating, especially for someone who's already very not mobile. I think that could affect his throwing motion a little bit. And then on top of that, they're saying, I'm sure you've seen it, Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers have had some disagreements, I guess we'll call it, at training camp. There's been videos of them arguing and pointing and yelling back and forth. So if you don't have that great chemistry with your wide receiver one, that is a big concerning flag for me. I'd like my quarterback to have a good chemistry with my wide receiver one. And I know that this training camp and it's the off season and people just need things to talk about. So that could be a big part of that. But it is something to monitor, as well as we haven't seen Garrett Wilson become that elite receiver. We've seen him have incredible seasons. Not incredible. We've seen him have great seasons and produce well with horrible quarterbacks, but we don't know if he's just going to stay that way or if he's going to take that next leap and become that alpha receiver that we all kind of have been hoping he would become. So I think the Jets will be solid. I mean, I think that their defense is enough to carry them as we saw last season, but I did not think that Aaron Rodgers will look like the Aaron Rodgers that we're used to, and I think the Jets will underperform of what we are all expecting.
Interesting takes. You guys can let us know what you guys think in the comment section. But
And if you have any more ideas for call it or scrap it questions, let us know in the comments.
yes. All right,
Sure.
I'll leave you guys to it.
All right. Well, I think that does it for us this week. Let us know again what you guys think about our takes. Again, if you have any questions about that, or if you have any questions that you would like to hear us answer, we're excited for the segments that we have coming up. So we're really excited again to keep in routine, keep bringing you guys content, and we hope that you enjoyed this episode. So once again, thank you guys for joining us. We will catch you guys next week. New segments. Stay tuned. See you guys around.